guarding the Republic through reason, history, and honest conversation, where duty meets discourse and liberty finds its voice. Together we stand watch as citizens, freelanders, and centenniers, the defenders and guardians of liberty, freedom, and the Republic itself. So grab your favorite adult beverage and join me at the Sentinel Republic.
Oh, bartender, that'll be a double shot of your very best watered down gin right here.
Hello, and welcome back to the Sentinel Republic. And today I want to talk about, well, it was Veterans Day this week, and I do want to thank all the vets that served and appreciate the service. I myself am not a vet. I did serve in law enforcement, and I did serve in Homeland Security, but I did not serve in the military, and I do kind of regret that, but I do appreciate all our service members out there, and I am always grateful for service. And by doing some of this Sentinel Republic, I do hope to contribute my part to our republic. Well, some say I already did with my law enforcement, but I don't feel that, maybe just local. So I do feel the military saves us or protects us at least on a national level. And I do appreciate all your service. On that note, I do have an update on my books. I do believe my first book should be out next week. With the final proof should be to me. The good news is my final editing for the Without War There Is No Peace series, my first book, The Stories of Dr. Samzov, should be out back to me on Monday as well. So I should have a better timeline of how things are looking on my books starting next week, I hope. So, and my first draft of my book 2 is pretty much is about done, so which is The Rise of Evil. So it's looking really good on that front this week. So I will keep you all up to date and let you know in a future video where I'm at on that. And I'll leave a link when I do have a place where you can pick up one of my books or something here soon. So in that note, I wanted to talk about a subject matter I do talk about in my book quite a bit, which is near and dear to me, and that is the 17th Amendment. And the 17th Amendment, I don't find many people that know which one that one is. I mean, as you study the Constitution quite a bit, you'll know that the 17th Amendment was passed in 1913. It was in a time when there was a lot of corruption going on. There were some issues with how things were working in the Senate and how the way it was working. And so they did pass an amendment around that time that took the power away from the states, essentially. That was the unintended consequence anyway, or maybe the intended consequences, depending on how you look at it. It's hard to know really what the motivations on some of these are, but at the time, originally the Constitution had our Senate as not an elected position. We didn't vote on the Senate. It was an appointed position. The state legislator would appoint the candidate. They did try in a few states before some of this corruption was happening. What happened in one, I can't remember which state it was, but there was a tie. I think it was maybe Oregon, but there was a tie in the legislature, and it prevented the senator from taking his seat in the Senate in D.C. And it went on for, I want to say about 2 years or so. And there was also some allegations of seat buying, where they would bribe the Congress people of the states to get them nominated and put into the positions. There's those kind of things going on. Just overall, there was a lot of corruption going on there. It was never clearly defined exactly to prevent this in the Constitution. There should have been or could have been more of a safeguard that should have been in there. I do propose those in my book, I believe, to a degree. I do believe there should be a full setup for that, but I'd also do advocate for the repealing of the 17th Amendment in my book and in my positioning. I do believe it is, and I do pinpoint that as one of our biggest obvious breakdowns of where our republic is starting to crumble from. and I'll go into more of that here in a moment. But what I still want to explain exactly what happened here. So I know a few states also tried to do a reform in their own way where they would nominate two people and then have the people vote for it, and then they would automatically confirm those in just a vote through the Senate and their legislature, and then they would appoint that. That did fix some of the problem, but they were still a lot of money buying and stuff going on there, and then it became more of a campaign, and it's still kind of what it is today, essentially. Where it's campaigning on and getting vote and get sent just like a representative would be. It's just automatically confirmed by their own state legislature. So they're bypassing the way it was supposed to be made by doing their own internal elections, which that's a little different. That was a state choice. Okay, that's a little bit thing. But then they ended up saying, hey, that's how everyone should do it, and we just should do automatic and bring democracy into the fold there, just like the House. And people love democracy. We gotta love democracy. It's I'm not sitting here saying I don't like democracy. I don't take me out of context here. I am definitely pro democracy here, but at the time it was very run by a bunch of the movement was run by a pretty progressive movement. I think Teddy Roosevelt was involved in that, and a few other for a push to reform how this is done. But they just made an election just like the House, essentially, and unfortunately the unintended consequences of that are we are reaping the the tragedy of all that, in the sense, if you want to call it that. um, we're not getting the rewards from it, that's for sure. But we'll go on that in a minute. So after it's repealed, immediately it starts becoming, instead of having a state power checking the president, checking the House and everything else, because it was originally the four checks. You had the people in the House, you had the states in the Senate, then you had the presidency, and then you had the judicial branch ensuring that the Constitution is followed. But what's happened over time, of course, is the judiciary is started legislating from the bench. You have the president issuing executive actions, trying to bypass our Congress, and then you have the Senate, which has become corrupted, essentially, with lifelong politicians that sit and live there and don't do anything, and except for raise the almighty dollar. And same thing with the congressmen; they're doing exactly the same thing as Congress. And then they wonder, why is it at 12% approval rating? Why is the presidency at 40% approval rating, or even lower in some cases? Then you look at judiciary. No one has faith in the judiciary anymore, and it starts a long time ago. And we've had corruption issues. I mean, every government has corruption issues. There's not much way around it. But unfortunately, we're in a bad way at this point, and I think it's not going to get much better. There's too much of this stuff involved in all of this. The moolah, and yeah, they're prop money. It's the same difference. You get what I mean? It is unfortunate, and the only way to really change it, in my opinion, is putting up more safeguards, and that's what I tried to do with my Sentinel Republic. And I mentioned a little bit ago, I didn't serve in the military, but one of the dreams I've always had is being able to go to DC. Not just to visit. I would love to have been able to serve. But there's one thing I cannot do, is ask people for money. I don't want the power. I'm not interested in the power and the influence. I want to do my part. It's my civic duty. I would give nothing else to just be able to walk the halls and give my speech on the floor of the House, and be able to put out my point of views, talk with people, and try to bring us together in a way we can all work together and quit the divide. I mean, people that know me know I have political views that are one side or another, and I do have my political views, but I am very good about separating my political views from political science. because those are different, in my opinion. There are work hand in hand, but they are different. There's a difference, and that's what's been lost, I think, at this point. People are there with their political views, but they don't understand that there's a political science involved in here. There is a structure of governance. There's a way to work together and come up with solutions to problems and expand by small little changes, not radical changes. Little things over time. And that's how the founders envisioned our country, to make little changes. Now what do? We make massive 1,000-page bills that with garbage and garbage thrown on top of garbage and then more garbage to make this one's person happy and this other person happy. And then what do? You got $10 trillion. No, it's not that many, but you get what I'm saying. You get, instead of having just an aircraft carrier bill, you got all this other garbage in there, and it's got, and if you don't vote for it, you hate kids because their school lunches in there. And it's unfortunate because that's not how it's meant to be. We're supposed to make reasonable, small changes along the way to help move our country forward, to make modern changes. Things do change over time. We cannot keep going on a system, well, this isn't working, so let's change, just gut out the whole thing and start over. No, we don't need to do that. We can make these small little micro changes to help advance our society, small little bills here and there. Military does need an aircraft carrier. Let's pass an aircraft carrier bill then. And let's have an argument on that. And I do talk about that in my books and use those kind of examples. And I don't want to come across as anti-democratic because I am not I mean, that's one thing I do. It gets me infuriated when I see these Congress people on both sides get up and speak, our democracy, our democracy, our democracy, our democracy. And I mean, the only thing that was democratic in our federal government that was supposed to be there is the House. And the House is definitely a democratic organization and or elected position. But the Senate was never meant to be. And I see the push for democracy. I understand. I feel the power of democracy. Everyone loves democracy. My vote matters. But what's the problem with democracy? There is lots of problems with democracy. And I talk about this in my book quite a bit. And I use an analogy with Superman and Batman in there, where Superman is the most powerful. He's flying above all of us, protecting our democracy, ensuring we're all got our voices. But what happens over time is you get too many people and the population explodes. The voices start getting too large and it becomes kryptonite to Superman. And it starts weakening him. And then the loud voices on one side then start screaming at the loud voices on the other side. And democracy's 50-50. Not like 60 or 2/3 and stuff like that where the founders envisioned and the republic sits at. But our democracy, 50-50, 50-50. And it does, and at a local level, this works, by the way. I'm not advocating against 50-50 either, don't get me wrong. In democracy, it works at a local level. But when you get 330 million or however much our population is now, and increasing, those voices start screaming at each other and yelling and screaming, and it's always the ones on the opposite ends, and the further ends start becoming more polarized and falling away from each other, leaving the majority of the people in the middle in the wake of all this yelling and screaming and hearing back and forth. And in certain topics, some people agree on one side and some people on the other, but what it does is all this yelling on the other side causes the pendulum to swing further and further and then further and then further and then further, and eventually at some point Superman collapses and the pendulum flies off. And you don't want to get to that point because that would be disastrous, not just for us but for the world and everyone inside of it. So we need to put up more safeguards. We need to reform and restore, I should say, our safeguards and bring back our safeguards and enhance our safeguards and enshrine our safeguards more to protect us from these voices which are led by these politicians who love division, who love separating us, who love the they know, oh, we got to have bipartisanship. No, they love partisanship. They want us divided. They don't want a united front because they know if we unite against them, we'll vote them out. That would be scary. We don't want that. We have to have these. We have to pump up these things. They use the media. They use all these people to break us apart, and they have these protests and they have these arguments and stuff instead of doing, and they get radical and they promote it. You know, bad thing happens to one person in a state and then it's top news, and oh, look at all this racism, or look at all this bigotry, or whatever you want to call, and they put it against us. And if you don't like us, and that's something that came up recently, if you don't like us, you're an anti whatever. And you lump everybody into groups. We have to group people up by race. We have to group people up by gender. We have to group people up by all this. They put you in a group. We have to group people by party. We have to group you into these groups so they can control you. They want you controlled, so you what? You donate the money. You got to donate that cash. Send us a check for $100. We'll get you what you want. But we ain't going to do it. We lie. We say anything that gets you to vote for us. Then you get a choice between a turd sandwich and a giant douche. Yeah, watch that South Park episode. It's really worth it. It's one of the best ones out there, by the way. Like I show you in the Distinguished Gentleman review I just did recently. And if you're an incumbent in there, you're automatically got a certain chunk of vote. And if you're a Republican or Democrat, you got a certain chunk of vote. You're already, without even having an election, you're already enshrined with 30 to 40% of the vote already. All you have to do is sway about 10% of those independents to come your way, and you're elected again. And what do? Oh, I'm going to lower taxes. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to take care of my business and make you all happy. Do they ever deliver? No, that's why their approval rating's 12%. But do you still vote for them? Yeah, you do. Because who do we usually vote for? Jeff Johnson. Well, Jeff Johnson died. He didn't even know he died. And now you got a con man named Eddie Murphy. Well, it's not Eddie Murphy, but his name is Thomas Jefferson Johnson. But you just voted for a con man. But then again, he goes to Washington and finds out the real con is everyone that's there. That's what makes that movie so special. And you have to watch it from a lens. I mean, they do, you know, one side is, you know, you can tell which side's which side and what's going on there, but watch it through the lens of political science, though. And it's still a hilarious movie, and there's still great stuff. Red Fox and all them. It's a great movie. I encourage you to go check it out and see my review if you wish to just see what that is. But we need to make a change. We can't keep electing these people. You know, like I said, I would love to serve. I envision a party. I would love to be able to make my own party, the Sentinel Republic, where we don't take donations. I don't want donations. Volunteer work, maybe, you know, you come volunteer, come help out, come, you know, spread the word, raise flyers, you know, whatever. I mean, that's how it should be done. There shouldn't be any dime in campaigning. Do I have the wherewithal to do it? I don't know. Probably not. You know, I'd have to have major support. Maybe if my book takes off and became a world name or something like that. If all my books come out and everyone knows me, yeah, maybe. I would love to do it. I do. It would be my dream. It's just like education. I would love to serve, and I would like to do my part since I didn't do the military. I would love to. This is my way of trying to save our republic and bringing us together. And I do hope that I can make a difference with these books. Whether my ideas are taken or not, I'm not trying to dictate. Like I said in my first book, I'm not trying to say all my ideas are exactly what should be done. No, but I love debating them. And I love hearing your feedback. And I do appreciate it if you do leave comments or feedback. I'm very open to ideas. I don't want to shut down ideas. I don't care what kind of ideas you have. You know, bring them up. I'd love to hear them. I study. I don't just sit and watch one news station. I check all news stations. I don't just sit and watch, one person. I have a bunch of follow people. I try to look. I don't try. I know I do because I do all the time. I go to both sides. I love to see what each side's saying. Do I usually my political beliefs favor one side over the? Yes, they do, and I'm not going to sit here and deny. I'm my personal beliefs sit on a conservative libertarian side. I'm not all there. Every subject matter is different. But that's where my political views sit. And you know, I believe in limited government, believe in our freedom. I believe in local government, local changes, local things, not on a federal level. That some things shouldn't be at a federal level. Never meant to be, never should be. We are a nation of states. Each state is different. You can't tell Southern Baptists to do, or people down in Alabama, Southern Baptists and stuff that's going on in New York. And you can't tell New York what's going on down there about stuff in Utah. It doesn't work that way. That's what makes us unique. That's what makes us united, though. At the same time, we do have different beliefs. We do have different states, and we do have different. And if things in your state aren't going good, I know plenty of people that will move somewhere. A lot of people are moving from New York to Florida right now because they don't like things going on in New York. More power to them. And that's the best thing about this country. You do have the option to go somewhere else. We're not different enough where it's like moving to a different country, but at the same time, it is a different, unique. Every state's unique and different, and has different populations. Sometimes people get along better with certain people, and different, and a change is good just in general for some people. And some people have families, some they just can't move and they can't they can't do that, and they have to deal with it, and that's unfortunate. But unless you got 60% in your state that want to change, the way I look at it is you have to accept it, or you have to work on trying to change people's minds. And that's what we have to do. We have to sit and debate. But you start at a local level. You don't go sit and protest in front of the Capitol building. Because and that's something I've always been very adamant about. The federal government should not have all this local issues involved. But we'll talk about that in a future video. And I do bring it up in my book, like I say, and I will let you know when that is out. And I do hope you enjoyed this video. I would appreciate you leaving me feedback. Like I say, I'm trying to learn and grow with this YouTube stuff. I never envisioned myself ever making videos on this. Trying to do this is an experience. I do have 4 kids and I don't have a whole lot of time. I'm due writing my books, but I do love talking about this kind of stuff, and it does, and I do want to make a difference. I do want to be able to converse and talk and debate about a lot of my things and subject matter. I don't profess to be an expert on all fields. I just feel like I have a lot of general knowledge. And I did study this stuff in college, of course, so I do have a background in it. And I don't want to profess I want to tell anybody what they're doing or what to do. But I do want to leave with this little quote I've come up with when I was working on my books. And it seems to be pretty unique because I've been trying to find phrases on it out there. And it's not with war, there is no peace, because that's its own thing. And I do that in my book, by the way. I'm not just talking about war, by the way. Actual physical war. But there's more to it than that. And you'll discover it over my books and stuff. But I came up with this one the other day when I was talking with my kiddo, and it really hit home, it seemed like. But I told her, be who you want to be, but don't forget who you are. And I think that is very important to people. And I hope it takes off. And please leave a comment on what you think about that. Because I think it's something where people get lost in. Things can be hard on people. You can have a hard life and you can have hard things coming at you. But you need to be who you want to be. But, people still know who you are, and you need to remember that and keep that in mind. And I think I even lost that for a long time sometimes. you know, and I have my own things on that. So I hope that makes sense. Please leave a comment. Please like and subscribe if you like this kind of stuff, and if I'm making sense to you, and if things are coming along. Give me feedback. I love to hear it. You know, I know in the first video I was like, oh, you're kind of blending in with the thing, and so I'll try to wear better shirts. But yeah, I I do hope everyone finds this enjoyable, and I do hope people will like my book when it comes out here soon. And it's like I say, the first nonfiction is not long, but it will be. It will. I hopefully will be impactful, and I will use it again. And I do have a second book in that series going to be coming out. I'm working on called The Lessons of History, and a third book that I'll be telling you all later what it's about and what it's going on. I have it outlined, and I've been working on it, and it's coming together really nice. But they'll all be used in my fourth book of my fiction series, and it's going to be. I'm going to have a very unique idea on that and how I'm going to do it, and I think it's going to be a game changing. I hope so anyway, and I hope people like what I'm doing there. That all said, I hope you enjoyed, and have yourself a wonderful night.